This is Political Junkeez with Brian Howie.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome back to Political Junkeez, the podcast for those hooked on politics. We are back in the very fancy Sticky Paws studio here in Las Vegas. I just landed in Las Vegas, and who am I fortunate to run into? Welcome back, man about town, bon vivant, Michael Sartain. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much, man. I had so much fun doing those other episodes, and people that I know that really aren't that into politics watch them, and I've got nothing but great reviews about the show and everything you've done.
Yeah, everybody thinks they aren't into politics, but if you're passionate about things that affect your life, you are into politics.
Yes.
You know, people pretend like, oh, I don't have an opinion on this. Like, yes, you do.
You're right.
And you could sit down people and, create an environment where people will open up about just about anything. We have spent a lot of time on this podcast, unfortunately, over the last year or so, talking about COVID stuff because that, better or worse, has turned political.
Yes.
And as I land in Vegas, I'm just informed that you're putting the masks back on?
Yeah, so we found that out, and it's one of these situations. So I have some friends that work at the Wynn. They had a meeting before this even happened, and they had determined all employees there were going to put masks on inside. As far as in the nightclubs, I don't know how that's going to work. As far as the masks are concerned, I think the main concern that people have here, I don't think is specifically the masks. It's all the other things that happen. It's the 50%.
It's the capacity.
It's the capacity rule. What happens at the gambling tables? What happens in the nightclubs? And what happens in the strip clubs? All those things that we were doing before. How do the party buses go? How the whole entertainment complex here? What happens to the Raiders? What happens to the Golden Knights?
Is that a county decision? Is that a gaming board decision?
Well, from what I understand, this is CDC guidance. Then it's going to lead to the governor.
So the governor can tell the casinos to mask their customers.
It was Sisolak who initially gave us the order before. From what I understand is there's going to be a federal mandate, and then there's going to be a state mandate. And if you want to go harder than that, if you want to be more draconian than that, like for instance, what happened in California, they went above and beyond. If you want to do that, for instance, if Mayor Goodman wants to do that, which she does not, I guarantee you, I haven't spoken to her, but I promise you, she is not for this mask mandate. Then they can go up another level.
But the strip's not even her jurisdiction.
Right.
So but, she can say a lot of stuff.
Right, she can say a lot of stuff. But the individual casino owners, from what I've seen, is that they've been proactive. Whatever is recommended, that's the direction that they go. So I think for their employees, they're going to recommend masks. I think, I don't know if you heard the LA County Sheriff specifically state he's not going to.
Well, let's get into that. So 2 weeks ago when Los Angeles said, oh, they're going to go back to masks, the rest of the country kind of laughed at that.
Yeah.
And now a lot of people are following that lead. So coincidentally, we have somebody who I believe is sitting in Los Angeles County right now who's going to join us. He's got a lot to say about a lot of things. I have a lot of questions for him. You remember him from just about every part of my childhood. I'm pulling him away from the Olympics to chime in here on Political Junkeez. Scott Baio, how are you?
Very good. Nice to see you all.
What sport are you watching? Are you currently watching the Olympics?
Right now I'm watching handball, which I always thought was played against a wall, but apparently it's more like water polo without the water.
It is like that.
Is that a good way to describe it? Yeah, I thought so. There is a version of handball that they play at the beach in LA that is, it's like a prison yard game.
Correct.
I grew up playing it, so I know what it is.
Kim Olajuwon was actually trying out for the Olympics to do handball before basketball.
Really?
Yeah, he was a Nigerian handball player, and then he switched over to basketball, and he was a goalie on their soccer team. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been watching the Olympics a lot, or you're just watching it while you kill time now?
Can I say again? If I watch,
are you watching while you're sort of killing time, waiting for us to start here, or are you heavily into the Olympics?
No. I really kind of got into badminton.
Yeah.
You're getting into it thinking like I could probably. Is there a sport that you've been watching? You're like, you know what? I could jump in there and be competent. Is badminton the one?
No, I've played badminton. And it's really hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
and it is. It's insane.
It's the speed at which they play it.
Yeah, these people are dripping wet, and they're whacking this thing 200 miles an hour, literally.
Yeah, they've got some weird sport. The 3-on-3 basketball, the fact that that's a sport.
So you take the ball out of the basket. Have you seen this? There's no side out.
Yeah.
You literally, the ball comes through the hoop. The other team has possession, and then it's 1s and 2s to 21, or whoever's done it 10 minutes. Yeah, it's really interesting.
What's good about the 3-on-3? What's good about the 3-on-3 is it doesn't stop.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's continuous action. It's pretty quick. There's one sport that I noticed where the men compete against the women. Do you know what that is?
What?
The equestrian.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's men riders and women riders,
that makes sense.
At least in the first event, all 3 medalists were women.
Yeah, I can see an advantage that you'd have from being smaller in something like that.
Scott, before we get into masks and things like that, do you have an opinion on Simone Biles?
Honest to God, I don't know. She quit because she wasn't mentally into it. Was that the reason why?
Her version of it, yeah. So I think we should listen to her version. Her version was she was feeling off. She wasn't motivated. She was having a bad day. She bailed. The rest of the world tried to say, well, the sexual assault from 12 years ago made her not ready for competition, and tried to make excuses for her that she wasn't giving herself. My argument was, if she needs to step aside, that's fine. The problem I have with this is, if you want to be paid equally, treated equally, regarded equally, if that happened to LeBron, Tom Brady,
right.
She calls herself the GOAT, whatever. It did happen this year with Kyrie Irving.
Right.
He took off some time because he got crushed by everybody. The fact that we're not allowed to criticize her, fine. Don't tell me you want it equal then.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, and I'm also interested, obviously, to hear what Scott has to say. The only thing I can equate it to personally in my life is being in the Air Force. And I remember the first time I went to go solo the aircraft by myself, and it was very scary. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you right now, it was not good for my mental health. It was incredibly stressful. But that's if I don't do that, guess what? The next guy then takes my aviator spot. Does that make sense? And so when we talk about this, I'm fine with what Simone Biles did. And, at Dak Prescott, he talked about dealing with depression. Also, his brother had committed suicide. He was dealing with depression, and he was open about that. The thing that you have to understand, and what I'm fine with Simone Biles, or in the case, let's just say you were an aviator in the military, or you had some position like that. It's okay if you want to take that mental health day, but you also have to be okay with the guy who steps up and then takes your job. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. So someone is going from the U.S. team is now going to have an opportunity to win an individual gold that she wasn't going to have the opportunity to win before because Simone Biles has stepped aside.
Right.
Does that make sense? As long as she understands that, because if I was part of the U.S. women's team, I would be excited that now I have an opportunity I didn't have before. That's the way I look at it personally.
But somebody didn't even get on the plane.
Got it. Okay.
Somebody got left behind. And if she was she's old by gymnast standards.
Right.
She's 24. So this is, first of all, a grown woman. This is not a little girl here. The fact that we can't question her, she's brave for quitting. She could just be like, I wasn't feeling it. That's fine. Let it go. You embroidered that you are the GOAT, the greatest of all time, on your uniform 2 weeks ago. You're selling merchandise in Bloomingdale's saying that you're the best. So you put yourself down there. You took the Nike money. You're taking the NBC money. You're taking all. You can't then be like, not feeling it. I'm out.
Scott, what do you think about this?
Well, if you're the GOAT, it seems to me that you should overcome anything and you should push through. I always go back to Michael Jordan. I don't know if you remember when he playing in the finals or whatever. His head was literally steaming.
Yeah, he had food poisoning
because he was like going to die from the flu.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like I'm not going to play because I'm sick. He just kept going. I don't know what her problem is. I'm not, so I can't criticize. But if you are the GOAT, you overcome whatever it is, and you compete and you win. And if you don't win, okay.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to lose. You can't be afraid. She felt like I might not win this.
That's legitimate. I feel like it's. I'm afraid, and I think a lot of the people are afraid to criticize her in general. But I'm afraid because I don't know the situation. So here's the other thing. I've heard the term the yips, right?
Yeah.
And the yips is when you have a professional athlete who cannot do the fundamental actions of his job. You see basketball players who will airball a basketball. Well, I can hit free throws, but they all of a sudden are airballing. Or it generally the term comes from golf, where somebody has the yips. They can't hit a 3-foot putt. Someone said that maybe she had the yips. I really don't know. I can't speak to that. The problem, here's the other issue. Here's where we have to be careful, Brian, you and I. And the thing is, you and I don't give a no offense, we don't give a shit about women's gymnastics or women's weightlifting, and we're going to make these things political, and then we're going to start a dialogue, and people are going to start saying they hate each other online because of something that we didn't care about for the last 3 years, and then the Olympics came around. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do care about the gender issues. You want equality,
Correct.
you have to take the criticism.
I do, but
and the fact that we can't criticize her without it being on some level perceived as racist or some level perceived as sexist,
right?
Then we're not equal here.
Yes,
and that's the problem we have. We can't criticize Serena Williams, anymore.
Right.
We used to criticize her like crazy, and it was probably unfair then, and now we can't question anything. We couldn't criticize Naomi Osaka, who pulled out of Wimbledon, and then she does the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and then she lights the torch. You either want the attention or you don't.
Right.
You either that's part of the gig. It's part of the job.
Yeah.
You are a public, that's why the sponsors are paying you to show up, to do press conferences, to build your brand. Can't have it both ways. My issue is we can't say that.
Right. No, I totally understand. For me personally, so a bunch of the other big gender issue is the lady who was born a man is competing in the weightlifting for females. And the problem that I have is that one of the issues is if I disagree with you, not you specifically, Brian, but people in general about this, then we hate each other.
I know.
Do you understand? That's the issue that I'm having.
Scott,
now we hate each other.
Scott, when you were on a set and you have, 50, 100 people there, and somebody's not feeling it, does everybody go home? What's the policy? Because it's not like a regular workplace where, well, we're not doing that job today. If you're in a pivotal scene, is it just, that's it? We cut for the day?
How about this, Brian? Unless you're on your deathbed, you're in it. You go to work, you show up, you've got 75, 80 people depending on you. And I've been to work 100 broken ankle, whatever other illnesses I've had, you go. So, there's none of that. Unless you're really, really, really sick and you're in the hospital, you don't go to work, and they work around it. But no, you go to work. Yeah,
I did a live comedy show a couple years ago with 13 broken ribs and a broken leg. I did it. That was the job.
I just remember one time we did the Great Love Debate here.
Yeah.
And I had just had back surgery maybe a couple of days. I never told you this. I had back surgery and I had a brace on when I was doing it. I was sweating.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Scott, how did you get yourself to be perceived as a political figure? How did that happen? And is this something that you like?
Yeah, I like it a lot. How did I get perceived? I started... Go ahead.
Was it one day and it's like you said one tweet or made one comment and then suddenly you were in?
I campaigned for Reagan back in '84.
Right.
But back then you could campaign for a Republican and not be the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the years, I did as much as I could for different politicians. But I think with Trump, that changed everything. When I came out for Trump in 15 on Jeanine Pirro's show, all bets are off at that point. I was the Antichrist. People wanted to kill me, and I have no problem with the criticism. I have no problem defending myself. And I actually, to tell you the truth, I said very early on that I don't care if I ever work again.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be coming true, which is fine, because if I can't fight for what I believe, then what good am I, and what good is being in America?
But how do you end up on Jeanine Pirro's show to begin with to even say that? What leads Scott Baio to be on a political Saturday night Fox show?
She asked me to come on. She had heard, we had a mutual friend at the time, and she heard through him that I was a Trump supporter, and I was going to come out, and I'm supporting the president, and I'm a Hollywood guy.
Right.
So she asked him, would I come on the show? And I said, absolutely. And that was it. And then from there, it just sort of snowballed.
Hey Scott, I have a question. So I'm curious, as a public figure, and you just sent before, you used the word Antichrist, devil. Where did you receive most of it? Was it from? Did you have a Twitter account? Was it mail that you received? Like where were you physically most aware of the vitriol that you received from being publicly coming out and supporting Trump?
Okay, well, that's easy. I was coming out of a Christmas event for my daughter's school, and the drummer for Red Hot Chili Peppers' wife punched me in the chest in front of my daughter and said to my daughter in her face, "How would you like it if somebody grabbed your?"
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter, who at the time was what, 7, 6, 8 years old, had no idea what was happening, was scared to death. And this woman, so that was the physical, physical evidence of what was going on. And she was. I thought she was messing with me. I thought she was just being a goof. But she punched me in the chest and was screaming at me in front of my kid. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you. I didn't know. So now I'm trying to put my kid behind me to protect her from this lunatic. And anyway, it escalated from there, and then on Twitter. And
did you know Trump before he announced? Did you have a relationship with him prior?
Nope.
So you just, some of the things he said and stuff resonated with you. You decided to say, like, this is, I believe in this, and then suddenly it's and you can name the 10, 12 celebrities who are, it's, you, James Woods, it's great.
But to tell you, Brian, when I heard him, I was a the ex-governor of Wisconsin,
Thompson,
Scott Walker.
Walker, yeah.
I was a Scott Walker guy because I had seen him speak, and then I went to the first debate at the Reagan Library where there were like 25 people up on the stage, and Trump annihilated everybody. And I always, for a Republican to win anymore, you have to attack constantly. You have to be, anytime somebody comes at you, you got to punch back twice as hard. And that's exactly what he did. And I said, this guy is the guy that can win. And I believed in what he was saying. I'm a very conservative guy, I'm probably the most conservative guy that I know. So, and he was talking my language.
So I remember back at that time, I remember thinking, and again, I did not vote for Trump or Biden. Just didn't want to make that clear. That I remember thinking the way before Trump, his candidacy was taken seriously. I remember thinking the way that they looked at Marco Rubio and Chris Christie, and how every one of them by the political standards was Nazi, gun nut, Nazi. And I remember thinking, if you keep taking the viable political candidates and you keep calling them Nazis, then the unviable political candidate is going to become the viable political candidate.
Yeah.
I see a different, now again, I'm not trying to, anyone who's a Trump supporter, I'm not trying to say anything bad about it. What I am saying though is I could see a different world. It just felt like, because he announced so late, they didn't have enough time to pick him apart like they did every other Republican candidate, rightfully or wrongfully. And then when he got in there, it felt like everyone else had this bad taste on them.
Yeah.
And then in Jeb Bush, all of them. And then all of a sudden, Trump comes and the media doesn't take him seriously. It almost felt like the media was daring the Republican National Committee, hey, why don't you nominate this guy?
Yeah, they thought it would blow it all up.
Correct.
But so let's go from then 1980 Reagan time to 2016, you led a life as a Republican in Hollywood, fairly uneventful, or even being a Republican in Los Angeles was challenging?
Nothing is like it is now.
Right.
It was completely different. You could have a conversation, you could talk to people, and you could say you're a Republican. They go, oh, you're a crazy Republican. And now they just won't talk to you. And they'll hate you.
So because
it's mind-boggling. I'm a bigot. I'm a homophobe. I'm an anti-Semite. I'm every other thing you can think of, and I'm actually none of those things.
Yeah, I mean, because like Clint Eastwood is a Republican.
Yeah.
Charlton Heston. There were some famous it was sort of even on, it was always a little bit balanced towards a liberal agenda, but both sides of
Right.
it. Now it's like, here are the 15 actors and actresses who stand with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I see those.
And they are, do you guys have a club? Do you talk to each other? Are you on the phone with Lorenzo Lamas? Like,
I can see Scott Baio, Lorenzo Lamas. I would want to hear that.
like
There was something called the Friend Abe. I don't know if you're aware that Gary Sinise had an organization that was all Republican Hollywood people.
Yeah,
But I got to
Sinise.
tell you guys, I'm going to say something. You're going to think I'm nuts. I think Trump won California.
You think he won the election in California? You think he won the state?
Yep,
And that's based on what?
I do.
That's a pretty big leap.
Based on what I saw, that is based on what I saw in Los Angeles, which is incredibly, you would think incredibly liberal, but I think he won it by the rallies that I saw, the people that I spoke to, the people that were hardcore Democrats who said, I can't vote for Hillary. I'm sorry, I can't vote for
Biden.
Biden. Because his mind is gone. I don't like anything he's saying. My pocketbook is great. We're doing, the economy's fantastic, and these are liberals.
Yeah.
And I can't vote. I know people that have switched parties. I would see rallies up and down Santa Monica Boulevard in Beverly Hills, thousands of cars, and I've never seen that. I've never seen it.
California's closer to flipping red than people think. It really. If there was
I think it flipped.
if there was a stronger candidate going up against Newsom's probably going to win this recall election just because there's not. You should have run, Scott. You probably could have won.
He wouldn't have done the things that he did if he thought there was any chance.
Right. If there was any chance that he could lose, you're not going to take him on with some random assemblyman and Caitlyn Jenner.
Right.
Like, you're not going to win with that.
No, Larry Elder's not a bad guy.
He's not, but he had trouble. He's on the ballot now. He had some trouble getting on the ballot, and he's a little bit far behind. But yeah, you're right. It's possible. But so one day, so you're living a life, you're politically active, you believe certain things, and then one day, a handful of tweets turns you into the devil. And people are asking, Nick at Night to pull off Happy Days or whatever. Like, there's a whole thing. And was that an overnight where you're like, what did I get myself into? And do I want this? Or were you motivated?
Oh, man, I knew it. I knew what was going to happen. I was watching the news. I knew that Trump was the devil and they were mocking him and he was a joke. I knew what was going on. And I knew as soon as I can, when I spoke at the convention, I knew that would magnify it by 1,000. So I was ready for it. And honestly, and I mean this in all sincerity, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care. I'm allowed to believe what I believe. I'm allowed to. And if you don't think so, you can kiss my ass.
Well, it's nice to be in the position, though, that you're like, I don't care if I don't work again.
Whatever.
Yeah, I know, but that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it is great. But, I worked a long time in a capitalist country where I made a lot of money, invested it well. And unfortunately, that seems to be a bad thing now. So I don't have to work anymore.
That's
so
true.
They can all kiss my ass.
You started very young. So that helps.
So can I recommend for both of you an incredible book by Dr. Jonathan Haidt? It's called The Coddling of the American Mind, and it talks about how around from about 2010 to 2014, we started having this cell phone generation go to college, and they were the first generation to say, no, you cannot speak on our campuses anymore. No, because what you say we don't agree with, you are no longer. So we ended Socratic debate on campuses, and that has then moved outward since 2014. And it's a terrific book because it shows a timeline of how this lack of debate started, and now we replace debate with hatred, right? So because I may agree or not agree with a biological man being a weightlifter in the Olympics, because I may agree or not agree, one side hates me. This is where we're different. Now we've gotten to the point, if you vote for Trump or don't vote for Trump, I will never hate you. This is the decision we individually have to make, regardless of what we feel politically. Yeah. It is not, I did not care that, like I said before, I did not care that much about women's gymnastics 6 months ago or a year ago. So it's not enough for me to hate someone regardless of what their opinion of Simone Biles is. And I think once we do that, now let's have a debate. Because if we can't do that, man, we are straight back to what Scott is dealing with now, where it's like, hey, man, Scott has some great ideas, but it's too late because I hate him because he doesn't agree with me.
People can't even date each other now without finding out where you stand on Trump before the appetizer comes.
I had a Tinder date walk away from me because she heard I was vaccinated. I'm a U.S. military member. I am a U.S. military member. They offered me a vaccination very early on, and I told my date, I was like, yeah, I've been vaccinated, and she's like, no, I can't go on a date with you. Just up and left.
Scott?
That's a little weird.
Yeah,
I know. Scott, do you think Trump will still be around and possibly running in 2024? I mean, he's old.
Yeah, but he's the Terminator. I mean, the guy looks the same. He looks better than when he was ill.
I agree. He does eat the McDonald's, and it does seem to work for him.
Is Donald Trump on testosterone? Yes or no? Anybody?
How about this? I hope he runs just to mess with everybody. I really do, because I want to see their heads explode again.
Yeah, but Scott, I don't think he would mess with everyone. I think he'd have a legitimate shot of being the Republican candidate. I don't think he'd be messing with anybody. I think that
I'm talking about the media.
Yeah, got it.
How much of Trump's support is rooted in that? I want to mess with everyone. I hate the media. I want to uproot the system. Is it 20% of it, or is it most of it?
I'd say a third. Of it.
Scott, the let's just fuck with everybody and put Trump out there again.
Yeah, but I think to mess with people is what we like about him, because I think the system is absolutely a disgrace, corrupt, and full of beggars and thieves and liars. So I want it to be blown up. Right. So you're saying to me just to mess with people? That's what I mean by mess with people. You know, I would love him to go in there and fire all these military guys, this Mark Milley, and get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what I want. It's very simple for me. I want the country that I grew up in. Forget the racism shit. I'm not interested in that conversation, because there isn't any anymore. There will always be some somewhere. But that issue to me is dead. The media keeps going with it because it's all they got. But I want the country that I grew up in, where I was free, where I had opportunity, or people had opportunity, where we were safe, where we didn't hear about this division every single day on the news. I'm just so tired. I want the wall. I want illegals to be taken out that are criminals, and I want to be left alone. That's it. That's my worldview of America. That's my world. That's my country view.
Was there a time?
To me,
yeah, go ahead.
Trump to me was the guy that was taking us down that road.
What was the time that you thought it changed, that you're really like, we need somebody in? Was it during Bill Clinton's time? Was it an Obama time? Was it before that, when you're like, we're going the wrong way as a country, that you felt that way? Do you remember that?
Bill Clinton's a hardcore conservative now.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I think Obama. I think every time Obama said something, he did the exact opposite. So I knew that there was a problem with him. Immigration to me is very big,
right?
Because I think they're trying to change the demographic of the country for political power. And I think it's disgusting, and nobody's saying anything about it really. But I think Obama, to me, he was a disaster with Israel, with Iran. I think he was a disaster globally, and I think he was a disaster all around. But even him now, he will be considered middle of the road.
Yeah,
but I think that's when I started getting scared. That's when I realized, you know what, guys, we're really on the wrong road here.
Well, did you notice? What did you start to notice about California and Los Angeles County? Has that because that is really?
I start noticing what?
In terms of Los Angeles started to feel like a different place about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They let a lot of low-level drug offenders out of prison at the same time with no plan to do anything with them. I think, say what you want about the usage of it, legalizing marijuana and decriminalizing a lot of activity changed a lot of behavior.
Yeah.
It just did, especially on the west side of Los Angeles. You can steal shit, you can break shit, you can graffiti shit, you can smoke shit, and with no repercussions, and sleep wherever you want.
I have a family member who is chief of staff at a hospital in that area in the west side of Los Angeles, and he is pretty politically progressive, and he couldn't even explain it. He got to the point where he started doing a podcast, and he was like, man, there are a lot of homeless people here. There's like crime that like I paid millions of dollars for this house, and there's a homeless tents not even 200 yards from my place, and I'm not allowed to call the police on them. And I do think.
Michael,
go ahead.
Is he going to change his vote?
I don't know if he's going to change his vote. I do know his message has definitely changed.
You know they're not homeless anymore. They're unhoused residents.
Sure.
That's what they're called.
But the problem is, if you're not going to change your vote, what does it matter?
Right.
Well, there's a lot of people. You're right on that, Scott. There's a lot of people who are very progressive and woke in Hollywood and are secretly voting the other way.
Yeah.
Or they're secretly making donations the other way. There's a lot of phony, the old limousine liberal term is true. That's not a joke. They're unhoused residents. Do you know that shark attack, the PETA got a hold of the conservation. It's not a shark attack anymore. It's a shark interaction.
Yeah, insane.
That's a real thing now. They thought that it was unfair to the sharks.
So my ex-girlfriend attacks me. It's an interaction.
It's an interaction.
Good to know. Good to know.
Los Angeles was caught. The problem with Los Angeles, as far as the homeless goes, is they're allowing people to be homeless in neighborhoods that they will never be able to transition to, even if they worked 40 hours a week.
Got it.
If you want to give them transitional housing or job, you're going to have to take it off the beach. Sorry. Like, you're not suddenly going to be able to go from homeless to buying a place in Santa Monica or Malibu. You're not. And so you're giving a choice like, okay, we're going to set up some homeless camp in, no offense to anybody who lives on the east side of LA, people are like, I can live at the beach for free. Why would I go live there? And so that's a problem. Like, they're not going to criminalize being homeless, but they're not going to incentivize anybody to get out of there either. People are like, why would I work at Jack in the Box for 40 hours a week when I can get plenty of services, I can sleep wherever I want, and answer to no one? I don't know what we do about that in LA, but it's a huge problem. Scott?
You cut it off. That's what you do.
Right.
You cut off the free phones. You cut off listen, you drive. You live in LA, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. So you drive under a freeway overpass.
Yeah,
and these people have armoires and chests of drawers,
Venmo accounts, Venmo.
It's unbelievable, and they're on their cell phones. And I'm like, you know what? This is not bad. This is what? Well, you're right. Why would I want to give this up? I don't have to.
I get almost everything I need. I can't afford a place even if I made minimum wage working 40 hours a week. I'm better off not working, not going to the system. They give you meals if you want it. You can these tents. I don't know. These tents are fantastic. REI are they selling them to homeless people? People just buying them. And I know I feel bad, but half of the people don't care. They want to be homeless, so they need to focus on the ones who want to get out of there and transition. There just aren't as many as you think. There aren't.
90% of those people are drug addicts. I don't care what anybody says. I see them shooting up in the middle of the street, defecating on the sidewalk with my kid in the car. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I just cut it off and say, you guys got to go somewhere else or help them. Put them in a facility to clean them up and help them instead of pissing the money away on what we're doing now.
I think you're right. I think the Skid Row downtown homeless situation is different from the Venice Beach homeless situation. I think the Skid and the Valley. Yeah, there's mentally ill homeless, there's drug homeless, and then there's like I just want to hang out at the beach homeless.
Right.
And we have to stop treating everybody like they're the same and and wasting resources on we want to hang out at the beach homeless.
Well, the mental illness one is the one because we did previous calls with military members. And that one to me is the one where I think, like I said, 100 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, man, we were throwing people in jail that had schizophrenia,
right?
And we didn't understand what we were doing. So that problem, it goes back to we use the police as a one-stop gap for everything. We have somebody with domestic abuse, we call the police. Somebody robs a bank, you better call the police. You call the SWAT team. We have somebody who is having a 5150 mental breakdown, we call the police, I guess. And so now we're in a situation where, like, yes, you end up with that. And now because this person has mental illness, they cannot conform with what society needs as far as them working. And now they end up homeless. That's a different type. I do agree with you. Different types of homeless. Whereas somebody who's like, he's trapping, he's selling drugs to a bunch of people out in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And it actually is advantageous for him financially to be homeless.
Yeah. You can't sleep in your car, but you can sleep in front of somebody else's car. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You know, you're a business owner in Santa Monica, and after 11 p.m., anybody can sleep in front of your business and do whatever they want as long as you're not open. It's just,
These are liberal policies. This is what you get. It's confusion. There's no rhyme or reason to any, just like COVID. None of it makes any sense at all.
What do you think the end game is, or what do you think they know? And I've said this, I'll say this clearly. They know the masks don't work. They know that. They've known that for 50 years. Why do they keep pushing that? They're more likely to say the vaxes don't work than the masks don't work. I think that's where we are now, because the Americans will always buy in on a pill and a shot. Where they can always sell more. They can always be like,
right.
Booster variant, do that. For some reason, though, they would rather say, the vaxes aren't as good as I thought. Let's go with the mask, when they know the masks don't work. Why?
Well, I think with the masks, there's two different things, right? Does the mask protect you? Does the mask protect other people? If I sneeze or cough, yes, it's going to keep that from getting on somebody else.
If you don't cover your mouth.
Right, correct. But a lot of people don't. I'm just saying that's the logic behind it. But is it a 100% solution? No. And same thing, Chris Paul was vaccinated when he tested positive for COVID right before the NBA or right before the Western Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people brought that. I was like, well, I thought he was vaccinated. He shouldn't get it. The thing is, I think what's difficult is, and I don't know Dr. Fauci, so I can't speak for him specifically. But in the situation is, he is dealing, because he's a scientist, a medical professional. He has to deal with statistical probabilities, and those keep changing as we get more numbers.
He's a bureaucrat. He's an administrator.
Correct.
I don't think he's dealing with any. I don't think he's looking at any data. He's a fundraiser. He's a schmoozer. He's had that. He hasn't practiced medicine in 50 years.
Right.
He is a political. He's a government worker, and no offense to government worker, he's the highest paid government worker. He's looking at agendas. He's looking at polls. He's looking at a lot of things. And the fact that we're trusting him like he's the lead scientist is a mistake. It still comes back to the question, what is the end game here? Because they know with absolute probability the virus is never going away. It's going to be endemic. It's going to come and go. It's going to be like cold and flu, and we're always going to have it. Why this drive to get it to zero when that can't happen?
I mean, that sounds political to me. Yeah, I mean that you
Scott,
have this very useful thing.
What is the end game for COVID?
Well, first of all, I think it's to instill fear in the American people, and it works to a certain degree. And I think it's about control, and I think it's about money. These big pharma companies are making trillions of dollars on this because. So let's get everybody. I don't get the everybody vaccinated thing. I just can't. That to me is just control, one world order, whatever these people want to do. I don't know. I wish I knew. And if we did know, it's probably pretty scary. But Michael, you said Fauci is going on the data. Well, if you go on the data, we're fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think
the deaths are way.
No hospital's full. So, no hospital has ever been full.
So what I think. Go ahead.
Kids. 0 kids have died from this that didn't have an underlying condition.
0.
And we're still masking up kids in school.
Right.
So the only people that are hit. I'll give you the rough statistics. 0 to 18, the survival rate, if you get, is 99.99%.
Right.
Above that, 99.98. Above that, 99.95. And 65 and over, 95 or 96%. That's better than the flu.
Yeah, that is.
So here's what I think. I think Fauci starts off, it's political. Then when the political part backs off, then it becomes scientific. Then it becomes political again. Then it becomes scientific.
He played these games with the AIDS data, and he had to scare the American people into believing that it was equally dangerous for the straight population as it was for the gay population, which was never true. Right. He knew that was never true, but in order to get the funding, he was willing to pay fast and loose with the truth. He has a 40-year record of having no issue with bullshitting for an agenda, yet some people, we still book him on TV because he's willing to say scary things, which drives ratings, which the Chinese love that we're all freaked out about this, and it just goes on and on and on. I thought it was over. I was on an airplane a week ago. The flight attendants at that point didn't even care if anybody masked. We were that close, and I think then like, it's close to normal. Let's dial it back, and it all went bad again.
Exactly right. I agree 100%. And I got to tell you guys, first of all, Michael, thank you for your service.
I appreciate it.
First, what was I going to say? If somebody would come out, anybody would come out and say, you know what, guys, we screwed it up. You know, we thought it was bad, really, and we're sorry. It's not as bad as we think, and we're going to try to make your life a lot easier. I would go, you know what, man? I get it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We didn't know.
You didn't know what you were dealing with for the first year and a half of my life, of this COVID thing.
Yeah.
I'd give them a hug and a kiss and say, okay, let's get on. Let's get on to whatever the hell you want to get at. But they can't do it because they're so far into it and they're so far invested in it.
Right. And I don't know who's, controlling Biden, but wouldn't Biden want to be the one who'd be like, we got through it. I did it. We're fine. The fact that he wants to go back into this, but he could get out there and take credit and do whatever he wanted if he wanted to. The fact that he likes the scary game too makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. But as far as, we messed up, you guys do understand the Spanish flu wasn't Spanish, right? It came from a military base in Kansas in 1919.
Is that true?
Yeah, yes. You should look it up. Look it up right now. This is not debatable. It's on Wikipedia. You can find.
It's debatable. It's on Wikipedia.
Well, I mean, it's debatable, but it actually came from the United States. The only country that was allowed to report freely during World War II, where the media was not controlled by the government, was Spain, because they were not part of World War II. That's why we call it the Spanish flu. They were the only country that was openly reporting deaths. 60 million people died because of the Spanish flu. The United States never said, "Oh, our bad. Sorry about that." But yeah, the Spanish flu started in the United States.
Fun fact for Michael Sartain.
It started in the United States. Epidemic started in the United States.
Maybe we should cop to that one first.
Yeah,
right.
And then we'll get.
But we know exactly. That's the whole thing. We never admitted, oh wait, yeah, we did this one wrong and we screwed up. But as far as what you're saying goes, I don't. So and again, I'm not disagreeing or agreeing. Well, I am agreeing with a lot of what you guys are saying. But the thing is, I don't think these people are sociopaths. I think it's a situation where you're right. In Fauci's situation, he's figured out how to survive on the Beltway, and he says whatever he needs to say in order to do that. And I think as far as Newsom is concerned, and maybe Biden, is somehow in their minds they believe that if I am more draconian and more strict with these rules, then no matter what happens later, if any lives are saved, I can take responsibility for all of them. I think that's what
I get it. But DeSantis is like, I understand this. I use doctors that know what they're talking about. Right. I understand seasonality. I understand the tests are bad and they don't work. And people rooting against Florida. People want Florida to go back. It's the sickest thing. People pass around like, look, cases are going up in Florida. That's how broken people's minds are.
You're right. Because Florida's open, they want them to fail.
Yeah, they want them to fail.
Okay, yeah.
They want Texas and Florida.
I was just in Florida. I was just there.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about COVID.
No, it doesn't even come up. I was just there too. It's lovely.
You want to know who I blame? I don't blame the media. I blame the American people, because I don't think the American people do their homework.
Yeah.
I think we read a headline, Florida is a disaster. So, but they don't read what the disaster is. They thinking because Florida had one more case of COVID, the headline reads, Florida is a disaster. Yeah. And when you read into the article, it's nothing.
Yeah, they'll see cases rising. It went from 2 to 3, hospitalizations.
Yeah, so people don't know that there's other states that are flourishing. The Dakota, I don't want to get the list of what's the flourishing. Yeah. So we just are not informed. And and you can't be informed when big tech is censoring, but there's other ways to find out, and nobody wants to find out. We live in a bubble on our cell phone, and we go on Facebook, and that's it.
I know. I don't know why people I want to mask my children. I want to have my kid put their dirty mask on their face. It makes no sense.
If you're driving in a car by yourself, You need a mask? You're jogging at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I will say one
yourself.
of the most irresponsible things I found from both parties in the last election was, if you guys remember when Joe Biden, he did this commercial where he had this humongous blue mask on. It wasn't a mask. It was a humongous blue mask on when he was talking. There was no one around him. And he was talking into this humongous, like it was like all the way up here mask. And I was just like, and it was blue. It was a blue mask. And I was like, that is very irresponsible, because what you've done is now all these people in Orange County are never going to wear a mask because you wore a big blue mask and you did that now. And then I look at Donald Trump and then he does the opposite. And it bothered me a lot that both political parties were using the mask as a political tool, but that big blue, he didn't need to make it that big. Well, he didn't. If there were people around and the mask was a normal size mask and it wasn't blue, I would have been maybe okay with it. But that, I remember seeing that and like, I knew as soon as he did that, all these people in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, all these people in Orange County, immediately, let's just say masks did work. Let's just say they do work. Immediately, as soon as he did that, those people were like, I'm not getting vaccinated and I'm not wearing a mask because he put a big blue mask on his face.
Here's where I think Trump was wrong, and here's where I think Rand Paul is wrong now. Both of them, Trump all last summer and Paul, every time he gets in front of these congressional hearings, have every opportunity to say, listen, you guys studied masks for 100 years. You all said with certainty they don't do anything. Show me the study, the actual scientific study where you show this. Because the CDC even uses the C2 hairdressers didn't get it. The hairdresser anecdote is really used as a study on the CDC website. I would say Trump he should turn around and say, Fauci, you changed your mind on masks. What is the study and the data that led you to do that? Trump never asked that question. Rand Paul never asked that question. If somebody came out like, here is what we found out, a real study, they don't ask it, and it doesn't exist. And that's a mistake by Trump, and that's a mistake by Rand Paul, who's leading he's taking it personally in Fauci versus just getting to the answer there. Yeah. Because Fauci keeps saying studies suggest things. He's very clever about couching his language not to get boxed in. There is no study. It doesn't exist, and nobody comes out and asks that question. Scott, I have a question for you, though. You apparently have some free time now. Are you going to run? Have you thought about it? Have you thrown your...
Why would I do that? Why would I expose my family to these pigs?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Did you ever think about it before, though? Because you were passionate about this stuff, 10 years ago. Did you think about running? I
thought about it recently.
For what office?
For governor of California, but I'm not gonna. I just won't. I don't want to get on that wheel. I just don't want to do it. I love my life. I have a wonderful family, and I'm not going to expose them to the the year and a half rectal exam that we're all going to have to take because I'm a conservative.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger got in through the side door. He didn't have to go through that scrutiny because it was a recall election, and he was kind of coronated into if Davis got recalled, Schwarzenegger was getting in. He avoided that year-long scrutiny that he would have had to go through. It isn't worth it to run. I do agree with that. It is not worth it.
Especially for a conservative, Brian, especially for a conservative.
It is.
It's impossible.
All right. In the interest of time, this is something we do when we have somebody on the podcast for the first time. Go back before 2016. Give me a conspiracy theory that you've heard in your lifetime, and you're like, you know what? I think I believe that one. Give me something out on the real fringes prior to 2016. So let's go back, Kennedy assassination, moon landing. Is there one that you're like, you know what? Aliens. That one. Is there one?
What, that I agree with?
Yeah, that you're like, you know what? That has some validity. Is there one that you're like, you know what? I've always been questioning about that.
Well, I can tell you that I was friendly with Vincent Bugliosi.
Yep.
Remember the attorney who put away Manson.
Yeah.
And he wrote books on the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I read one of his books.
And I always thought there was some conspiracy involved in that. I don't know what it was.
You talking about the MK Ultra thing with Manson? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the assassination of the president.
Of Kennedy.
Oh, going back there.
Kennedy.
Okay.
Huh. Yeah. So I thought it was. I didn't think it was Lee Harvey Oswald. And every time I saw Vincent Bugliosi, I would come in and say, it was the Mafia, Vince, and he would scream at me. No, it wasn't the Mafia. And I did it on purpose. I really liked him. Very liberal guy, though, which I found shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald.
But it's not.
Well, I'm going to get a lot of bullshit now.
No, that's okay. No, that's a reasonable one. Most people, but everything is. A lot of people think not Lee Harvey Oswald, but you're going to get 100 different answers of who.
Yeah. So the thing is, I don't know. I wasn't there. Although I am from Dallas. But I will say this: and we've said this before on the show. The presupposition that Oliver Stone has that he couldn't have made that shot is not correct. You could have made that shot with a football.
I was there yesterday. I was in Dealey Plaza yesterday. Yeah. It's right there.
Extremely. Remember,
it's closer than you think.
He's a left-handed.
Is it closer than you think?
It's right there.
He is a left-handed Marine Corps, a qualified rifleman with a bolt-action Italian 308. Firing to his left anyway. It is a perfect lined up shot. And not only that, the president, when he's going down Houston, is that's the name of the street. When he's going down the street, he's going directly away, almost directly away. It is I'm not going to say it's an easy shot. It is definitely a makeable shot.
Yeah.
He got off 3 rounds and he hit the president with 2 of them. I'm not saying that Lee Harvey Oswald did or didn't do it. I personally think he did.
It's possible.
But it was a possible shot.
Then you've just debunked my conspiracy theory.
Well, let me ask you this. Here in Vegas, they don't talk about what went down very much.
Really interesting.
What is there a theory?
Okay, so again, let's get to the technical part of this, because after this happened, I talked to a couple guys who were SEALs and a couple guys in the Marine Corps.
We're talking about Vegas.
We're talking about the Vegas shooting. So in this thing, this guy had 2. I don't know how far you want to go into this, but he had 2 firing positions. He had fully automatic. They weren't fully automatic weapons. They were M4s that had bump stocks on them, and he had 60 round clips. And the reason he had so many guns is because he expected the barrels to start melting after 60 rounds. So he got out there and he was firing into a crowd of 22,000 people and killed 50. To me, he's a bad shot. And I hate to say that because it sounds extremely morbid, but the idea that one guy couldn't have done this, no, one guy absolutely could.
What is the motivation? Just some guy who cracked that just...
Again, so have you ever watched Mindhunter or read any of John Douglas's books?
Yeah.
Okay, so before 1970, we used to aspire all murders to motive. And then after 1970, once we became a little bit clear with type 2 personality disorders like sociopathy and things like that, or narcissism, we started to understand people can commit murder for no fucking reason. And then once we came to that realization, now it sort of makes sense. Like when you read about Helter Skelter and what Charles Manson believed, he had no backing, he had no understanding of that, or he was just making it up in his mind. Once you come to that realization and you start realizing that this guy who shot all those people, he may have done it just to do it. And I know that sounds incredibly sick and horrible for all the people who it happened. The other reason I'm gonna say this, and this sounds a little sad too, but nobody from Clark County died. And I think that's the reason why on October 1st, we don't talk about it that often. We should, but we don't really.
Yeah, this town
forgot
pretty quickly pretended it's bad for business, but it pretended it didn't happen.
It is very strange.
So I'll give you one more thing, and this is why this whole I'm going back to the Kennedy assassination.
Sure.
So it must have been, I don't even know, 30 years ago, 20 something years ago. There was a Navy. The Navy, does the Navy have admirals? A Navy admiral.
Yeah.
Right. Who was retired, and he gave a symposium at Hollywood High. I don't know if it was 30 years ago, 20, whatever it was.
I used to live right next to Hollywood High. Yep.
It was, do you know why it's called the Sheiks?
Why?
Because the year that school was built, Rudolph Valentino had a movie out called The Sheik.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, a little bit of trivia.
Fun fact from Scott Baio.
Yes, I'm full of them, and full of a lot of other things. So at this symposium, this admiral gets up there, and he is telling us, and it was packed. I mean, packed. He was telling us the reason they killed Kennedy, they meaning us, the government, our government, was because Kennedy was going to expose UFOs. So
we put one conspiracy on top of another. There you go.
And I'm going, well, I'm there and I'm listening, right? I'm not criticizing. I'm just listening. And then he says, okay, so now I'm going to show you something, and I want you to watch it. And he showed the Zapruder film.
Okay.
And I'm watching it, and with I don't know how many, eight, maybe 1,000, 1,500 people. And he says, now I want you to watch it again. said, okay, watch it again. He goes, okay, I'm going to show you a third time. He says, now I want you to watch the driver. And I'm watching, and he said, watch the driver turn around. And you see the driver turn, and he says, look at the driver's left hand. And you see the driver go like this. And he says, the driver has an electric gun that's full of shellfish toxins that will kill the president if the bullet doesn't.
Wow.
So
I suppose.
yes,
I suppose maybe.
that was right.
That would have definitely ended up on
Shellfish toxins took him out.
100% that would have ended up on Facebook.
I don't think that's in the
that would have ended up on Facebook. 100%.
All right, this was fun. Scott, are you banned from Twitter yet or no?
Oh, I've been knocked off and back and knocked off and all that kind of shit. Anyway, I don't believe what the guy was saying, by the way. I'm just telling you what I went.
Dude, I love the shellfish toxins.
The shellfish toxins. I have not heard that.
We're going to bring that up often on the show.
I was trying. Is there anything you can plug, or you're not banned? You're on Twitter. You're on Instagram.
I have nothing to plug. I don't plug. I am gainfully and happily unemployed.
It's very liberating, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I get to be with my kid and my wife as much as I want and as little as they want.
All right. Stay safe. Stay sane. Michael, final thought?
Yeah, let me say something. Scott, if I was a hardcore Bernie supporter, you and I should be able to still go out and have a beer. We should be able to enjoy comedy. We should be able to talk about our favorite TV shows. No, you should not be subjugated to hate. You should not be yelled at. The point I'm trying to make is if we don't agree politically, and I'm not saying we don't, I'm just saying hypothetically, if we don't, we should be able to have a conversation. We should be able to enjoy each other's company. We should be able to attend a charity function together. We should be able to raise money for charity together. We should be able to do all of those things. That's the world I want to go back to where I can have a conversation with somebody I don't agree with politically, and we don't have to hate each other because I disagree with you about an athlete that neither of us knows or about some political position or some war or something like that. I think we should be able to go back to that. So Scott, you shouldn't have to deal with that. Honestly, I definitely feel bad about that. And I hope that at some point we get to that point.
I agree, and I appreciate that immensely. And I'll just give you I'll give you my last thought. The cigar shop that I go to, there's all kinds of people in there, black, white, Asian, gay, straight, whatever, and we hang and we make fun of each other and we rank on each other and we get mad at each other, but we come back the next day and we hang out.
Yeah. And that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, I mentioned to somebody today that Scott was coming on today, and they got mad that we were even going to talk to him. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, we can't have a conversation. You go over to Israel now, they argue all the time, and they do break bread, and they do about all kinds of things. It's the way it should be.
Hey, guys, thank you so much. It was fun.
Thanks, Scott. We'll talk soon.
If you want me to come back, I'm happy to come on, whatever you need.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Great to meet you.
Good job. As far as us,
God bless. Bye-bye.
As always, like, share, subscribe. Oh, subscribe's out. You're supposed to say follow now. Did you know that?
Yeah, follow.
Follow's out.
And the other thing is, guys, we've been posting some of these clips on IG story and on Reels, and I think I am so excited for this new world that we have, because what you and I are doing is long form content.
Yeah.
And so many people have lost that. They're doing 15-second clips for life. You know, we're doing these clips on IG story. They link back to the podcast or they link back to the YouTube video, and then people who normally wouldn't have any interest in this are now becoming interested in it.
Because people are like, I can have a conversation.
Correct.
About that.
I know. I love Joe Rogan. You know, I pattern a lot of stuff I do as far as interviews after what he does, and nothing to do with him politically, but I like the intellectual curiosity. The fact that this guy can still do a 3-hour podcast and people will still listen to it. And you go back and you listen to, like, and I'm going way back, the Lincoln Douglas debates, when they would have conversations for 3, 4, 5 hours. I want to get back to that. I want us to get off the Adderall and like get to the point where we can have discussions and discuss the entire topic from start to finish and not just hate each other.
Yeah. Podcast, everybody. Have a podcast. Thank you, Sticky Paw Studio, Travis on the ones and the twos, and we will see you next time on Political Junkies.
This is Political Junkies with Brian Howie.